Hello, everyone, and welcome in as we get set to talk a little OU softball here with Griffin Media. My name is Jeremie Poplin, joined by Chris Plank, the play-by-play voice of the Oklahoma Sooners. And it is time to start focusing a little bit more on this OU softball team as we are reaching the end of the season. And we need a preview because it's OU and Texas coming up in this weekend series. And there's a lot going on. We know that you're focused on the Oklahoma City Thunder. The NFL draft is coming up this weekend. But this is a massive series for the Oklahoma Sooners. And we welcome in Chris Plank. Dude, what's going on, man? How are you?
You buried the lead, man. Come on, your former co-host on the Big Show. What do we have, like over a decade of rolling? But yeah, man, I'm inordinately excited. I'm like beyond the moon pumped for this weekend because I got to tell you something, Pop. I mean, you and I did radio for a long time together. Could you imagine me being this excited over softball? And I am. I mean, here we are. Here we are. I'm sitting moments away from first pitch between Oklahoma and Texas. And it's been a year that I think for some fans has been a little bit hard to like compartmentalize because you've lost some games and you've lost a series or two, but yet you might be better than you've been in years past. And I think that's been a hard thing for fans to kind of grasp just because of how challenging the SEC truly is.
Well, I mean, ever since the doors opened at Love's Field, I mean, there's one team that's been circled on the calendar, and that's when is Texas coming to town. And now the wait is finally over. So, and it might not be the 1-2 that many had envisioned, but this is still a massive series for both teams and for the overall conference inside of the SEC. So we'll just start there. The excitement has been building towards this, and it's finally here, a chance to see the Longhorns.
Yeah, and it's funny because this is the same Texas team. I mean, it really truly is. This is the same Texas team that Oklahoma's seen the last 2 years. I was going through the stats last night in preparation for this, Pop, and it literally, I mean, you look first base, second base, short, third. I mean, they've had a couple injuries. Has Texas, you look at their outfield and they're the same. It's kind of eerily similar to Oklahoma last year and years past, except Texas isn't coming off a national championship. They're coming off a runner-up, in 2 of the last 3 years. So it's a really, really good Texas team. And, Mike White said something very interesting last year. He said, we don't have one pitcher that does everything. We have 3 pitchers that all do a little bit of the same. In other words, you might have a spinner, you might have a fireballer, you might have a more of a mix, but you didn't have in one person that did all of them. And in Tegan Kavan, I think you've kind of seen that ace develop throughout this year for Texas. So I'm real excited for this week. And obviously Oklahoma went there last year, lost the series in dramatic fashion. And now Texas is coming here. And this is an Oklahoma team that, I mean, it seems like they're starting to find their stride, right? Alabama, that Sunday game was very forgettable. But, they're a pitch away from winning the Monday game, and they destroyed Oklahoma State and took care of Mississippi State, who hadn't been swept all season long this past weekend. So, like you said, it's not 1-2, but it's pretty close. It might be like 2-3 or 2-4, depending on which ranking you look at right now, because this is big time. And it's 2 teams, Pop, that are honestly fighting for a national seed. They want to be in position to host a super regional.
I want to go back to the Mississippi State series here in just a bit, but you brought up Mike White, and there was a little, I don't know, tense moments towards the end of last year with maybe a few of his comments. What type of reception do you think that Mike White, who, by the way, very well respected, like we're not throwing any shade whatsoever on Mike White, but the reception that he will receive this weekend, I'm intrigued to see what that sounds like.
He is public enemy number 1 to Oklahoma softball fans. I mean, it really truly is. He's one, Gajewski is 1A, and Kenny knows it, and I think Kenny relishes it. I don't think Mike White likes it. I don't think he likes that. And I think he's one of the kind – I mean, listen, Mike White's always been really good to us. But it's just he seems like the kind of guy that maybe you can get under his skin a little bit. And they've got a coaching staff that, is very passionate and very good at Texas right now. So he's the guy. Every – Pop, come on, man. Like, you need a bad guy. You need a
Of
heel.
course.
You
Yeah.
need someone that and when he was at Oregon, he was beloved, and he was it's Mike White. Look what he's doing out at Oregon, and they built a new stadium, and this is great. And he comes to Texas, and all of a sudden it's like, look at John Cena turning heel on us, right? All of a
Yeah.
sudden he's the bad guy, and maybe he's always been the bad guy. I don't know, but at least in my mind, he seems to kind of not necessarily relish in it. You know, I think some people handle it well, but he's got a hell of a team, man. He's got a really, really good team coming in here this weekend. But I'm sure you'll see the memes. The Oklahoma fans put the clown face on him. They didn't like the idea that, he got tossed during the Big 12 tournament a couple of years ago. He's been very critical of Oklahoma and kind of stopping short of, but he's not. He's like a habitual line stepper, right? He kind of gets right to it and doesn't step over it, but comes real close to accusing Oklahoma of paying players more than they should and trying to reset the market. When meanwhile in his backyard, there's Texas Tech that just gave Nigel Kennedy $2 million, but he's very outspoken, but to a point when it comes to some of his frustrations with Oklahoma. And to be honest, Pop, you go back historically, players that Oklahoma and Texas were fighting for were the difference in championships. Hope Troutwine came down to Oklahoma and Texas, and many thought Texas was going to sign her. Bro, they brought out Earl Campbell to try to recruit Hope Troutwine to Texas, right? They brought out Earl Campbell. She was a Texas kid her whole life, and Oklahoma still got her. Haley Lee. Haley Lee, who had an incredible year for Oklahoma 2 seasons ago. When she transferred from Texas A&M, she was down to Oklahoma and Texas, and Oklahoma won that. And Haley Lee was a big-time difference maker in that year when the Sooners won the World Series. Alyssa Brito, holy smokes. Alyssa Brito started her career with Mike White at Oregon, came to Oklahoma whenever she was trying to decide between Oklahoma and Texas, and ended up being a big-time difference maker in the times when those two teams matched up in the past. So there's history there in where Oklahoma won some recruiting battles that made the difference. Now, Texas won some too. Listen, Patty, I think everyone loves Reese Atwood and what she's about. She'd look great in Crimson and Cream, but in the end, Oklahoma's won those battles in the past.
Isn't that what you want in a rival, though? I mean, you love that. You love the coach that is maybe willing to throw a little shade at you. Now, not going the disrespect route.
Right.
Some decide to do that depending on how much that they've taken in, right, from a fan base or not, that encourages them to maybe retort to something that they might have seen on social media or heard in media clippings. I love this from a rivalry aspect, though, because if look at it even from the Texas perspective, like they're winning national championships. They're doing what we aspire to do. So there's hatred on both sides, but this is what the true element of a rivalry is all about, and it's happening in softball, which is awesome.
Yeah, and everyone sees everything. Now in social media, I mean, Pop, you and I, we did shows starting in what, like 01, 02, 03. We could say some stuff that no one would ever hear unless they listen to our show, right? We could talk all the trash we wanted. Now, you think about it, you can't do that anymore. And Texas players will say something. Well, an Oklahoma player will see that on Snapchat or, I don't know, Instagram or whatever. And then suddenly it becomes a rallying cry, right? So it's a completely different world right now. And I'm not saying Oklahoma needs extra motivation or Texas needs extra motivation, but I think it's to your point. It just adds to the overall ferocity, the fiery nature of a rivalry like this. You said it, man. It's what you want. And, Oklahoma's lost 2 series this season, and one of those came at home. So that's something they take pretty personal. But it's so wild, dude. It's such a new team. And some fans get mad at me, and I'm like, hey, it's a young team. And they'll say, it's not young. Bella Emmerling's been in school for 3 years, and Abby Dayton's been in school for 3 years, and so has Kirsten Deal. But then you kind of pull back and you realize when you think about those who have been at Oklahoma for the long haul, it's your first baseman and maybe your number 2 pitcher. And that's it. That's it, bro. It's wild. Now, Hannah Core stepped up. She's been injured. So you got 3-person on a 25-person roster. that have, really been integral parts of Oklahoma's battles with Texas. So I think there's a little education that takes place. And I think that those who have donned the crimson and cream, they're taking it pretty personally right now. And it's a thing you'll love to see, man. It's going to be a really fun weekend.
But every team's different.
Yeah.
Every team has its own personality. Every team has its own points of motivation. Every team has their own bits of, all right, this has made me angry and I want to go do something about it. Like, you can't compare personalities and teams of the past to even new ones, no matter how many returning starters that you have coming
Yeah.
back, because when you start adding new pieces to that puzzle, it changes the dynamic. And that's why I wanted to ask you about Mississippi State, because it seems like, just listening to Patty, that she wanted a little bit more in terms of consistency. Now, those games on Sunday were very intriguing as well. But how did they come out of that series with Mississippi State this past weekend?
I don't think Coach would mind me saying this. I think this has been a bit of an adjustment for everyone because, in years past, if Oklahoma came out of a series where they won the games, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Pop, like 4-zip, 6-5, and 9-6, you'd be throwing your hands up and you're yelling, "What is wrong with you? Why are we not winning a game by run rule? This is ridiculous." But then you look and you see Mississippi State have been swept this year. Top 15 RPI team, and you realize that's pretty good, And I think that's been a hard adjustment for not just coaches, but for fans too, right? And I think for these players, she had a great line in the pregame show on Saturday, I think it was, maybe it was Sunday, where she kind of told the team during their day off Saturday with the weather, it's like, "Hey, man, you guys realize you've only lost 5 games. You're essentially in first place right now in the SEC." And the team wasn't even aware of it because of just all this, oh my gosh, the negativity and how you lost and things of that nature. So,
Which is so wild. That's wild to even think about.
Bro, it's crazy to even think about. And I'll say this. I think that in that realization, there's been some freeing, if that's a term that's even real, where it's kind of opened up to say, man, we're playing good softball, right? There is this standard that you're held up to at Oklahoma that's almost unfair, but it's the standard. And
so is this the new standard that fans can get used to, playing in a conference like the SEC? We've had these discussions about football in the past about, all right, so what's your level of expectation? I know, win a national championship every year. I completely get that. But from a more practical sense, this is a loaded conference, the best conference in the country when it comes to softball. I would think now that you feel maybe towards the end of the season a bit more battle tested when you get to Oklahoma City, because you've just gone through the gauntlet that is the SEC.
So I'm pulling up. I've got a this shows you. I don't think I'll bust him out, but I've got my own personal bracketologist, Pop, and he sent me his
No way. You have your own personal
I got my own personal
bracketologist.
bracketologist. And just in his most recent projections that he sent me, think about this. Of the top 8 teams, national seeds, 7 of the 8 are from the SEC. In the top 16, right, which is regional host, you've got, so 7 of the top 8 are SEC. Then you've got, so that's 7. 8, you got 10 SEC teams that would be regional hosts based on that. I mean, and that's week in, week out. And I'll tell you what, baseball's experiencing it. You go into a weekend series and you win like one game on the road against Alabama, and you're like, let's go. We got to win. We didn't get swept, and you feel good. Oklahoma goes on the road and wins one game against Alabama, and fans throw their hands up. It's like, what's going on here? But it's just, that's how good this league is. And like you said, Pop, you hit it on the head. Everyone has their own identity year in and year out. But I do think this is unlike any year you've ever had, right? I mean, you're at Oklahoma, you're replacing your starting left fielder, center fielder. You're replacing your starting second baseman, shortstop, catcher, third baseman, and your ace pitcher, 2 of them. So it's different. And I think they're much better than like maybe even Patty Gasso thought they would be at this point. So you're right. We got to get used to a new normal. Toby said something the other day that really stayed with me. That year that they went 2 seasons ago, like 66-1, that kind of reset the expectation. It's just unrealistic, and if Oklahoma plays their best ball with this squad they have right now, they shouldn't lose a series. But that's just not reality with the pitching you're going up against and the opposing team's offense you're going against. So it's been a whole new world. It's cool, dude. You'd love it, man. You go on the road to these places and they actually expect radio to be there. They have press boxes. You're like, oh, this is a press box. I'm not sitting outside. So it's a really, really cool world where not just softball, and I know this is pretty softball heavy talking about OU Texas. Pop in Diamond Sports, the SEC probably puts an emphasis on softball and baseball more than any other conference. And I think you're seeing it play out in the way that the national championships have gone in both sports over the last decade.
Let's talk about this pitching staff and where they're at right now heading into this series.
Oof. That was not good this past weekend. I saw Jen Rocha after the game, and I'm like, that was awesome, Coach. Great job. She kind of turned and she looked at me. She goes, that was not awesome. But we won the series. And it was a battle. They had as good of a performance as you could have from Sam Landry on Friday night. Then on Saturday, Audrey Lowry, this very talented freshman that had not been really touched up at all, she got rocked. There's just no other way to put it. Now, you know me, dude. You've been around me enough. I'm a pretty positive guy. I'm a glass half full guy. So I took positives from that, and that Bella Smith came out of the pen and did something that she hadn't done, in a long time. She pitched really well. She held Mississippi State at bay long enough for Sam to come in and close it down. And then on Sunday, in the second game, Sam just really didn't have it early and then found it. So, it's
to the point where it didn't even Patty try to take her out in the seventh, and Sam was like, no, I got this.
I got this. And then Coach even said it. She's like, I was going to go get her, and she told me not to. So I think this is wild to say with 6 regular season games left, but dude, I think it's still a work in progress. And Sam Landry's going to be gone. Bella Smith is going to be gone after this year. I don't know what the overall makeup of that room is going to look like. I'm sure they'll get in the portal and get someone. Kirsten Neal has had these moments where you're like, holy smoke, she's elite. And then she's had these moments where it hasn't been what it needs to be. It's like very patchwork, It's kind of like working in radio. You patchwork enough jobs together where maybe you can make ends meet. And that's kind of how this pitching staff is right now. They're patchworking things through, and they have an ace. And, it's wild because at this point last year, I think Sam Landry is better today than Kelly Maxwell was 365 days ago at this point. People forget Kelly Maxwell lost essentially 2 games against Oklahoma State in that Bedlam series, and Carly Keeney came in and pitched the 3rd game. It's not to throw any shade at Kelly Maxwell. I love the doc. But she really clicked whenever they got to the World Series. And it's wild. You go back into history, and in 2021, G. Juarez did not pitch in the Super Regionals. She did not pitch much in the regionals. And then you got to the World Series, and she was, for lack of a more professional term, she was a dog. Jordy Ball got hurt in 2022, and Hope Troutwine had to come in and pitch, right? And Hope had pitched to some, but if Hope's not what she was in 22, they don't want a title. Then Jordy comes back in 23 and is dominant. That team was incredible. And then last year, again, Kelly Maxwell she wasn't great until they got to the postseason. So, I look at history and I say the best is yet to come with this pitching staff. But if you got an ace that's throwing it and spinning it like Sam Landry is, you got a chance to do a lot of really special things.
2 more. I want to go to the top of the order, obviously with what they've accomplished, but consistency is something that's kind of been a theme. Outside of the top of the order, where have they really struggled at with that?
Cassidy Pickering has been the leadoff hitter now, I want to say, like the last 4 to 5 games, and she'd only been the leadoff hitter like twice previously in her career. And I really think she's embraced it. Coach likes to have someone with a little bit of pop in that leadoff spot. And I think Cassidy Pickering provides that. So I guess I would say the problem is they're very top heavy. You've got Pickering, and then, Nelly struggled recently, but she hit 2 home runs on Sunday. Ella's hurt. She's got, a leg/foot issue she's dealing with. So, you're starting to see her come around. Gabby Garcia finally got back on track this weekend. And then, Sid Sanders kind of rides a roller coaster a little bit. And then beyond that, then you get to, okay, Alana Agbayani, the second baseman, has been good in stints, but she's had some struggles. Abby Dayton she's got Jada Coleman energy, right? But the production hasn't quite been that yet. And then you've got to get something from Bella Emmerling at catcher, and you're starting to see it. She had 2 hits on Sunday. I thought that was huge. And it seems as if Hannah Core has kind of, established herself as someone who you can rely on in that third outfielder spot. And, dude, she's their best outfielder. Like, she's their best defensive outfielder. So you want her to hit so she can stay in the lineup. So, whenever I first started doing this, Coach taught me about, hey, you don't want to have outs in your lineup. You don't want to have someone when they come up and they're hitting, $190 or 200 or even 250. And when they get a hit, you're like, oh, look, Plank got a hit. He's terrible.
Yeah.
You don't want anything like that. And I think they're battling through that because numbers-wise, it hasn't been good in SEC play. But I felt like this weekend was a big shift in the right direction for them. So if they can get more consistency from Emmerling, if Hannah Core can be what she was this past weekend consistently, they got a chance, man. They really do. But you forget how much you took for granted just having Kinsey Hansen behind the plate, and it's like, oh, she's going to get a hit here, or she's going to throw a runner out who tries to steal. It's just, it's an incredibly important position and in softball. And it's one that, I'm not pointing a finger at Bella Emmerling. She's done a nice job, but it's just hard to live up to that standard when you're replacing someone who just won 4 straight titles. And, won the Johnny Bench Award as the best catcher in college softball last year and was a finalist for it the year before. I mean, it's unreal.
Last one as we get set to wrap up. Clearly, you want to win this series, and it will do a lot in heading towards the SEC tournament. But even if things, and I know Sooner fans probably don't want to hear this, but even if things don't necessarily go your way, it doesn't necessarily mean the end of the season. To your very point, still a team that is in a work in progress, but this is a big series for Oklahoma if they want to win the SEC championship.
Right. If you sweep this, you're the favorite. Like, you're the favorite. You win 2 of 3, you're kind of a co-favorite, right? You still have to go to Florida next weekend. Pop, I'm happy with 3-3. Like, if they win 2 this weekend, now that's a little bit fake news because 3-3, if 2 of them's this week and 1's next week or vice versa, right? I don't want it to be win here and get swept next weekend or get swept here and sweep next weekend. I would 3-3 would make me very happy. 4-2, I'd be over the moon. 5-1, I'd ask to come back on and want to get my next championship ring size. I'm like, what size do I wear? Right? That would be what would happen if they went 5-1 the rest of the way. 6-0 is, I mean, I think in some ways almost unrealistic, but that's the new normal, right? Yeah. So I would love to see them win this series for the OU Texas rivalry, and I think they have a chance to. And it's another way to just kind of get at that confidence of Texas. There's a really good chance that this series on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday that was played for the national championship last year and then 2 years ago could be the championship game in the SEC tournament and could be the championship series again. That's how good Texas is. That's how good Oklahoma is. There's a really good chance, Pop, when they play Florida next week, that could be the SEC title, and that could be the championship series. So it's a wildly challenging stretch. But you're right. I mean, listen, there's probably a lot of people that are watching this that don't live, eat, and breathe every minute of softball, and they just see that they win. And they see that they win a lot. And they're like, what do you mean that you just want them to go 3-3? Well, I want them to go 6-0. But I think in this, new world in the SEC, you got to be smart and you got to think about it from the perspective of this is, you're playing the 8, 7, depending on which ranking you go by in the RPI. There's Warren Nolan. He's got Texas at 7. There's the real RPI that I think has him at 5. And then Florida is like in that, mid of the top 8 too. So, you didn't have that in the Big 12. That's a whole new world. At least not in the modern era of the Big 12. So, I'm setting a fairly low level of expectation. And let me tell you something. If they surpass it, look out. All this time Patty spent in this offseason trying to temper expectations, it's going to be through the roof, man. And I think fans should buckle up because it's going to be a fun 3-week stretch getting ready for the postseason.
Dude, you can't tease me with one ring. Bust those out here. Let's see what those look like. You got them all sitting there right there behind you. So let's
I got
look at all of those.
I got lucky for a while where I got some Big 12 football championship rings.
Yeah.
And my dad, my dad, he's like, oh, you need to get a ring holder. And I was like, okay. So he got me that. And then my daughters will come out here and move them all around. So that's the other thing. And then,
good grief, I can't even match that. The only one I've got that's within reaching distance right now is just my Drillers Championship ring. That's the only one that I have. So.
This is my favorite, though. This is last year's, okay? And I never wear them because I didn't do anything. But, Pop, this has the I'm sure I won't be able to do it. But this has the thing where it pops off, and it can be like a
like the Super Bowl rings.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah.
And it pops off, and you can wear it like as a –
a pendant. All right, a necklace.
The stadium in there for the first year. So pretty cool. I got no, I did have to pay taxes on it this year, which was kind of new. So I don't think my wife's going to let me do it again. But you know what? It's awesome to see the way that these teams have persevered and earned, this time.
No doubt.
Maybe they'll get another one this year. We'll see.
No doubt. Chris, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for jumping on, giving us a little update as we head into the Texas series. 6 regular season games left. For those that are watching, remember, hit the like and subscribe button, and you can check out all of our previews and all of our content on the OU and Texas series at news9.com and newson6.com as well. Plank, thanks, buddy. Great to see you, man, and best of luck the regular season.
You're the man. Love you, bud. Have a great week.